Have you ever gone hours without eating and wondered if your body is secretly helping you or hurting you? What if I told you that after a certain number of hours without food, your body may actually switch into a completely different biological mode, one that could help burn fat, slow aging, improve cellular repair, and possibly even support regeneration at a deeper level? Yet despite how popular intermittent fasting has become, one question still confuses almost everyone. Exactly how many hours do you actually need to fast before any real benefits begin? If you've ever tried intermittent fasting, thought about trying it, or even felt skeptical because you were told your entire life that skipping meals is unhealthy, this conversation may completely change how you think about food, metabolism, and your body's natural healing systems. Today, we're diving deep into intermittent fasting, not through hype, trends, or exaggerated promises, but through biology. We're going to answer one of the most important questions people ask. When do the benefits actually begin? Is fasting for 12 hours enough? Is 16 better? What really happens at 20 hours or beyond? And perhaps most importantly, how does your body gradually transform during those hours without food? The first thing you need to understand is something most people never hear when intermittent fasting is discussed online. Your body does not suddenly flip a switch after a certain hour and magically start working differently. Everything happens progressively, step by step, hour by hour. Your metabolism changes gradually, and different biological processes begin activating at different stages of fasting. That means your goal matters. Are you trying to lose weight, improve metabolism, support healthier aging, reduce inflammation, encourage deeper cellular repair? Or are you simply trying to feel better and understand what your body actually needs? The number of fasting hours that may benefit you can depend heavily on what you're hoping to achieve. So let's imagine something very realistic. Picture yourself sitting down for lunch at noon. You prepare a meal that's rich in carbohydrates, something most people naturally enjoy. Bread, rice, pasta, desserts, sugary drinks, or anything that causes a strong rise in blood sugar. You finish eating, and after that moment, imagine you don't eat anything else for the rest of the day. Now, what exactly happens inside your body? The first thing your body notices is the rise in blood glucose, also known as blood sugar. After a carbohydrate-rich meal, glucose levels increase naturally. This is completely normal. In response, your body releases insulin, a hormone designed to help move sugar from your bloodstream into your cells, where it can either be used for energy or stored for later. And here is where many people misunderstand weight gain. Most people assume I gain fat because I eat fat. But in reality, for many individuals, excessive carbohydrate intake plays a much larger role than they realize. When your body receives more carbohydrates than it immediately needs, especially if you are not physically active enough to burn them, those extra carbohydrates can eventually be converted into fat, particularly in the liver, and then stored throughout the body. This is why someone can feel confused after avoiding fatty foods, yet still struggle with weight gain. The issue is not always dietary fat itself. Often it is excess energy, particularly from carbohydrates, that remain unused. So let's continue following your body through this fasting timeline. You finished eating at noon. Hour zero begins. During the next several hours, your blood sugar gradually starts coming back down. This happens naturally because insulin is doing its job. Your body is using the energy from your meal, and blood glucose begins stabilizing. During these first 2, 4, 6, and even 8 hours, your body is still mainly operating from the fuel you recently consumed. At this stage, nothing dramatic is happening. This is normal metabolism. Your body is simply processing the meal and using available energy. But then something interesting begins to happen. As blood sugar levels continue falling, your body recognizes that incoming fuel is becoming limited. Somewhere around 8 to 10 hours later, your internal survival systems begin responding. Instead of depending on the food you already ate, your body starts tapping into backup reserves. This is where special hormones enter the picture. These hormones help prevent blood sugar from dropping too low by accessing stored glycogen, which is essentially your body's emergency carbohydrate reserve, mostly stored in the liver. Think of glycogen as a backup battery your body quietly keeps in storage. Rather than relying on new food coming in, your body begins releasing stored glucose into the bloodstream to maintain stable energy. This process is incredibly important because your brain and vital organs still require fuel even when you're not eating. But here's the key detail most people never hear. Those glycogen reserves are not unlimited. Eventually, your body starts running low on them. And this moment changes everything. For most people, somewhere around the 12-hour mark, glycogen reserves begin dropping significantly enough that the body starts transitioning toward a new energy source. Instead of mainly using carbohydrates, your metabolism begins shifting toward fat. And this is where intermittent fasting becomes truly interesting. Because once your body begins using fat as fuel, an entirely different metabolic phase starts to emerge. This transition is one of the biggest reasons intermittent fasting has attracted so much scientific attention over the years. Because around this stage, your body is no longer simply digesting meals or running on recently consumed carbohydrates. It begins changing fuel systems. And when that happens, some very important biological effects start to appear. For many people, this shift begins around the 12-hour mark, although individual timing can vary depending on metabolism, activity level, diet, and overall health. But generally speaking, once glycogen stores become significantly depleted, your body starts relying more heavily on stored fat to produce energy. This process has a name, lipolysis. And if you've ever struggled with stubborn weight, slow metabolism, or the feeling that your body refuses to cooperate no matter how hard you try, understanding lipolysis may completely change how you look at fasting. Lipolysis simply means the breakdown of stored fat into usable energy. Instead of constantly depending on incoming food, your body finally begins opening its own energy reserves. In simple terms, it starts saying, I already have fuel stored, I can use that. This is one of the reasons many people interested in fat loss become fascinated with intermittent fasting. Because from roughly the 12-hour point onward, the body becomes increasingly capable of using fat as an energy source rather than simply storing more of it. But there is something important to understand here. Intermittent fasting is not magic. It does not somehow erase poor nutrition, remove the need for healthy habits, or instantly transform the body overnight. What it does is create a metabolic environment where your body becomes more efficient at accessing energy it already has. And for many people, that alone can be incredibly powerful. But surprisingly, fat burning is not the only thing happening during this period. At the same time, another fascinating biological change starts taking place. One that has less to do with body weight and much more to do with aging, recovery, and tissue repair. Growth hormone levels begin rising. Now, when people hear the phrase growth hormone, they often misunderstand what it actually means. This isn't simply about becoming taller or building enormous muscle mass. Growth hormone plays an essential role in repair, metabolism, recovery, and maintaining healthy tissues throughout life. When we are younger, growth hormone levels are naturally much higher. This is one reason children and teenagers recover faster, heal quicker, and generally experience more rapid tissue renewal. But as we age, these levels gradually decline. And when they decline, something else happens. The body slowly becomes less efficient at renewing itself. Recovery takes longer. Metabolism may slow down. Skin changes become more visible. Muscle maintenance becomes harder. Energy often feels different than it once did. Many people describe it as feeling like their body no longer responds the same way it used to. This is part of normal aging. But here's where intermittent fasting becomes especially interesting. Studies suggest that fasting may stimulate an increase in growth hormone levels, potentially helping support tissue maintenance and metabolic efficiency. In other words, your body may enter a state that favors preservation and repair rather than constant energy storage. This does not mean fasting suddenly stops aging or turns back time. It's important to stay realistic. But what it may do is support some of the natural processes that help the body maintain itself more effectively. Think of it this way. Most people spend their lives constantly feeding the body without ever giving it enough time to switch into maintenance mode. Imagine running a machine 24 hours a day without ever allowing technicians to step in and perform repairs. Eventually, wear and tear begin showing up. Fasting may give the body moments to shift focus. Instead of only processing incoming calories, it may begin reallocating resources toward repair, efficiency, and cleanup. And this is why many people who practice intermittent fasting report something unexpected. Beyond weight loss, they often describe clearer thinking, improved energy, less bloating, or simply feeling better overall. Of course, not every experience is the same, and fasting is not appropriate for everyone. Medical conditions, medications, nutritional needs, pregnancy, diabetes, and many other factors matter greatly. But from a biological perspective, the body appears to undergo meaningful changes during these extended periods without food. Now, here's where things become even more fascinating. Up until now, we've mainly discussed fat burning and hormonal changes. Important? Absolutely. But according to much of the scientific conversation around intermittent fasting, some of the most talked about benefits begin appearing after around 16 hours. And this is where we encounter a process with a name that sounds complicated, but may actually be one of the most remarkable survival systems built into the human body: autophagy. You may have heard this word before and wondered what it really means. Some people describe it dramatically as the body eating itself, which sounds frightening. But that description misses the point completely, because what autophagy actually represents may be something much smarter than that. Imagine your cells quietly cleaning house, removing damaged material, recycling unnecessary components, breaking down waste that no longer serves a purpose, and transforming it into usable resources. Instead of chaos, it is organization. Instead of destruction, it is maintenance. And what scientists discovered about this process helped spark enormous interest in fasting research around the world. To understand why autophagy has generated so much excitement in the medical and scientific world, we need to talk about something that changed the conversation around fasting forever. In 2016, groundbreaking research into autophagy gained worldwide attention when Japanese scientist Yoshinori Ohsumi received the Nobel Prize for discoveries related to this cellular process. That moment pushed many researchers and physicians to take a much closer look at what the body may actually be doing during periods without food. But let's make this simple. What exactly is autophagy? The easiest way to think about it is as your body's internal recycling and cleanup system. Every single day, your body produces damaged proteins, worn out cellular parts, and unnecessary biological material. This is normal. Aging, stress, environmental toxins, poor sleep, inflammation, and even regular metabolism naturally create cellular wear and tear. Normally, much of this waste builds up over time, but during longer fasting windows, often beginning somewhere around 16 hours, your body may start increasing internal repair mechanisms that help recycle damaged material. Think of it like cleaning out a crowded storage room. Instead of endlessly piling new things into the room, your body pauses and starts sorting through what's already there. It identifies what is useful, removes what is damaged, and recycles parts that still have value. That damaged protein, it may be broken down and reused. Those unnecessary fatty acids floating around, they may become fuel. Old cellular material that no longer serves a purpose, your body may begin clearing it away more efficiently. And this is exactly why so many people find fasting so fascinating. Because fasting may not only be about burning calories, it may also be about improving the quality of how your body manages itself internally. Now, this is where fear sometimes enters the conversation. Many people immediately ask, wait, if I fast too long, won't my body start eating my muscles? It's a fair question. After all, most of us have heard warnings our entire lives saying things like, never skip meals, or if you don't eat constantly, your body will destroy muscle. But here's what many experts explain. During normal intermittent fasting windows, the body is generally designed to preserve important tissues while first prioritizing stored energy and damaged material. In fact, during fasting, the rise in growth hormone may actually help support muscle preservation. The body is smarter than many people realize. It doesn't immediately look at healthy muscle tissue and decide to destroy it for energy. Instead, it tends to prioritize available fuel sources for stored glycogen, body fat, and cellular waste products that can be recycled more efficiently. This is one reason many people who combine intermittent fasting with resistance training often maintain, or in some cases improve, body composition over time. Of course, context matters. Severe calorie restriction, poor nutrition, prolonged starvation, or unhealthy fasting habits are completely different situations. Intermittent fasting should never be confused with malnutrition. The goal is not suffering or starving yourself. The goal is creating intentional periods where the body can shift into different metabolic states while still receiving proper nutrition overall. And this brings us to one of the most common fasting schedules people use. If someone asks, how many hours should I fast to experience meaningful benefits? One of the most widely practiced approaches is called 16-8 fasting. This simply means fasting for 16 hours and eating during an 8-hour window. For example, someone might finish dinner at 8 p.m. and not eat again until noon the next day. Or they may stop eating earlier in the evening and have their first meal later in the morning. What makes this pattern so popular is that it often aligns with the time frame where multiple benefits may begin overlapping. By this point, many people have already transitioned into fat burning. Growth hormone activity may be elevated, and autophagy-related cellular cleanup mechanisms may begin becoming more active. In other words, 16 hours appears to be a meaningful threshold for many of the benefits people seek. But here's the question that naturally follows. If 16 hours is beneficial, what happens if someone goes even longer? What if fasting stretches to 18 hours, 20 hours, even 22? Does the body simply continue doing the same thing? Or does something deeper begin happening beneath the surface? This is where the science becomes even more intriguing, and where conversations about repair, regeneration, and cellular renewal begin entering entirely new territory. Because according to emerging evidence, there may be another biological shift that starts appearing during extended fasting periods. And if true, it may explain why some researchers and physicians are increasingly interested in fasting, not just for metabolism, but for long-term health and regeneration itself. So now we arrive at one of the most fascinating and debated areas of intermittent fasting research. What happens when fasting extends beyond 16 hours? If someone fasts for 18 hours, 20 hours, or even longer, does the body simply continue burning fat and cleaning damaged cells? Or could something more profound begin happening beneath the surface? According to growing scientific interest, extended fasting periods may trigger additional biological responses that go beyond metabolism alone. Around the 20 to 22 hour mark, some researchers have explored evidence suggesting increases in regenerative activity, including processes linked to stem cells. And before we go further, it's important to stay balanced and realistic here. This area of science is still actively being studied, and while some findings are promising, there is still much researchers are learning. But the possibility itself is incredibly interesting. To understand why, we first need to answer a simple question. What exactly are stem cells? Think of stem cells as the body's reserve repair team. Unlike ordinary cells that already have fixed jobs, stem cells have the remarkable ability to help generate specialized cells when the body needs repair or renewal. They play an important role in healing, tissue maintenance, and regeneration throughout life. When tissues become damaged or worn down, stem cells can help support recovery processes. This is one reason scientists continue studying them so intensely in medicine, aging, and disease prevention. Now imagine this. After many hours without food, once your body has already transitioned away from relying on carbohydrates, once fat metabolism has increased, once autophagy has begun clearing out damaged cellular material, the body may begin activating deeper restorative systems. In simple terms, your body may shift from cleanup mode into rebuilding mode. And this is what makes prolonged fasting so interesting for researchers. Not because it is some magical shortcut to immortality, because it isn't, but because the body may be using these periods without food to activate survival systems that humans have likely relied on for thousands of years. After all, historically speaking, human beings did not always have unlimited access to food. There were periods of scarcity, times when meals were not available every few hours. The human body evolved under conditions where going long stretches without eating was normal. So rather than viewing fasting as something unnatural, many scientists believe the real question may be whether modern eating patterns have moved us away from biological rhythms our bodies were designed to experience. For decades, many people were taught something very different. You may remember hearing advice like eat every 2 hours, or never let yourself get hungry, or even skipping meals damages your metabolism. And for some individuals, frequent eating may genuinely work well depending on medical needs, energy demands, lifestyle, or health conditions. But intermittent fasting challenges the idea that the body must constantly receive food in order to function optimally. Instead, it suggests something more nuanced. Perhaps there are moments when feeding the body is beneficial. And perhaps there are moments when not eating allows other important biological systems to activate. This doesn't mean everyone should immediately jump into 20-hour fasts. In fact, that would be a mistake for many people. Fasting should be approached intelligently and gradually. Some people do very well with 12 hours. Others prefer 14 or 16. Some occasionally practice longer fasts under proper guidance. Individual health, medications, blood sugar regulation, stress levels, sleep quality, and nutritional habits all matter. But this brings us back to the original question. How many hours of fasting should someone actually do? The answer depends entirely on the goal. If your main goal is fat burning and weight management, many people begin benefiting once the body starts shifting into fat metabolism after roughly 12 hours. If your interest is supporting cellular cleanup processes like autophagy, 16 hours often becomes the time frame most commonly discussed. And if someone is exploring more extended fasting approaches linked to deeper regenerative processes, fasting periods of 20 to 22 hours are often where scientific discussions begin becoming especially interesting. But here's what surprises many people the most. Intermittent fasting is not necessarily about eating less. This point is extremely important because many people misunderstand it. Fasting is not automatically a diet. It does not always mean starving yourself, slashing calories, or depriving your body. In many cases, a person may eat the same number of daily calories they normally would, simply within a different eating window. Instead of eating from early morning until late at night, they may compress meals into a smaller period of time. The food quantity might remain similar. The difference is timing, and timing alone may influence hormones, metabolism, fat usage, cellular repair, and overall biological function in ways researchers are still trying to fully understand. But before you decide whether intermittent fasting is right for you, there is one final truth you absolutely need to understand. Because the biggest mistake people make with fasting has nothing to do with discipline. It has everything to do with expectations. Here's the truth most people need to hear before starting intermittent fasting. There is no single perfect number of fasting hours that works for everyone. And perhaps that's the biggest misunderstanding surrounding fasting today. People often search for one magic formula, 12 hours, 16 hours, 20 hours. They want a precise answer that guarantees results. But the human body is far more individual than that. Your metabolism is unique. Your health history is unique. Your hormones, stress levels, sleep quality, medical conditions, activity level, age, medications, and nutritional habits all influence how your body responds to fasting. Which means the smartest question is not what is the best fasting schedule. The smarter question is, what am I trying to achieve? Because once you understand your goal, the fasting window starts making much more sense. If your objective is fat burning and metabolic flexibility, the transition that often begins after roughly 12 hours may already offer meaningful benefits. At this stage, many people begin shifting toward using stored fat for energy instead of relying only on recently consumed carbohydrates. If your interest is deeper cellular cleanup and repair, many researchers point to fasting windows around 16 hours, where autophagy-related processes may become increasingly active. This is one reason the 16-day fasting model became so popular. It offers a balance that many people find realistic while potentially unlocking multiple biological benefits at once. And for individuals curious about more advanced fasting approaches, periods closer to 20 or 22 hours have become especially interesting in scientific discussions involving regeneration and stem cell activity. But this is also where caution matters more. Longer fasting is not automatically better for everyone, and pushing too hard too fast can sometimes do more harm than good.